Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another .NET MAUI Community Toolkit monthly stand-up. So good to see you guys today. Vlad, James, always a pleasure. Vlad, how was your month?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, months, just a month. Yeah, it's spring. Yeah, it's finally spring. Yeah, but now I have a big question for me. Just Intel or AMD. Probably you saw that in our chat. So I'm choosing a new laptop because my current one is pretty old. So I found two models, but need to do one. They're exactly the same, but one with Intel and another with AMD processor, and I still can can choose which one is better for me. Yeah, maybe if you have some preferences or have experience with these two processors, let me know or left a comment. Because in a poll that I created in our Discord chat, yeah, AMD wins with 5/2. So who knows? Maybe it will be my next processor.
That's a good problem to have. I'll say I'm incredibly biased because I bought a MacBook, I think back in 2012 was my first MacBook, and I've only used MacBooks since. But the new M series processors, well, I guess they're 4 years old now,
Mhm.
are absolutely incredible. And I don't know if Intel's made any progress, but yeah, the ARM-based processors just passed them by. And so yeah, for coding, for what we do, it was a little tough at first. I think when I got my first M series was the M2 MacBook Pro. And yeah, like Visual Studio didn't really support ARM-based processors or ARM-based Windows 11, I should say. But yeah, that's all since been updated. Everything's great. I honestly don't notice any difference now, other than um, anytime I go back, I actually still have. This is funny. I have This is my old MacBook here. This is Intel based,
Mhm.
and I'm actually returning it or
Mhm.
trading it in for the new MacBook Air that came out yesterday. And it's so slow. Like, I hate opening up this machine anymore now that I've become used to using the uh, M2, M4 series MacBook Pro. So yeah, man,
Yeah,
ARM-based processors are
ARM
great.
processors are awesome, and actually for Windows, I would probably choose Qualcomm Snap.
Qualcomm, there are currently performance issues with the current generation of Qualcomm chips for Windows. And there's also issues currently with the Intel processors where they're actually failing hard in some specific SKUs. And you should look that up before you pick it because there are ones that are just fine and there are other ones that are just going to actually catch fire.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay. Yeah, I actually thought that AMD processors are really heat about 100 Celsius degrees Celsius, so it's really hot. And I see, based on the previous summer when we where we had more than 40 degrees Celsius temperatures, so it's actually and I do not want to fry eggs on my laptop.
You write some code, you cook some breakfast.
Yeah.
It's it's everything you need. Love it. James, how you doing? Good to see you again.
I'm doing pretty good. It's weather's been improving here. It's been getting a little warmer here on the west coast of Canada. It's actually quite nice today. It's I got the window open, and I spent the last month or so finalizing my EPUB or my ebook reader app, and I'm on the home stretch over the next couple of weeks. So I'll probably get it done.
Hey, congrats. Is that you're gonna push that to the app stores?
Well, yeah, but I'm going to be putting it in like I'm going to be putting it out there on Discord and that, and getting people to look at it first before I do that because, as you know, as a very much a junior developer, I haven't written any tests yet. So it's like one of those things where you take one look at it and go, nope, come back to me when you got 80% coverage.
Yeah, that's exciting though. I always recommend that to any new developer who's looking, or any existing developer that's looking to learn a new technology. make something that you want to exist in the world with it. I
Yeah.
I was fortunate that when I worked at Xamarin back in the day, or when I started working at Xamarin back in the day, my manager gave me a 6 month deadline. He said, "You need to have an app in the App Store within 6 months." And I had never even made an app before then. And you learn so much by doing it because there's a lot of work we do here on the toolkit, but it's such different work because we have to think in the mindset of library maintainers where there's going to be thousands if not millions of developers using our library, and we need to make sure it's easy for them to use and also intuitive and also reports the correct errors and all that stuff. Whereas like when you're playing around with stuff on your own, you can take some shortcuts. You don't always have to write the most robust library. Like you can skip tests. I don't recommend it, but um, yeah, I mean, as a single developer, I've got a couple apps in the App Store that I'm the only contributor maintainer on, and yeah, man, having a fully baked test suite is awesome. Like back in the Xamarin days, I would have UI tests as well, using Xamarin UI test, and I still haven't ported those over for my MAUI apps. But yeah, just being able to like click run all tests after you've just written a bunch of code and seeing them all pass, it feels good. Like at least most of the app still works. There might be some things that break, but you can always fix them and push updates. But that's exciting. Congrats,
Thank
James.
you.
Right on. But let's bring up the agenda because there's a couple things I want to touch on before we jump into all of well, the agenda part of the agenda. But yeah, here in the announcements, I want to start out by chatting about our minimum supported versions for the toolkit because this has come up a bunch recently. And basically, I wanted to share where our thoughts are, where we're coming from, and I do also want to let you know this is I don't want to say contentious because we're all friends on the maintainer team, but we have different feelings even on our own team about the minimum supported version. So uh, we have a PR open for the docs where Sean's come in to update that we did bump our minimum dependency on iOS to 15, and for Mac Catalyst, that's Mac OS 12. And actually, I believe we bumped Android. I have to double check that for this docs PR. But basically, what happened was we noticed that the .NET MAUI team updated their templates. So if you open up Visual Studio today and you're on the latest version and you say File New .NET MAUI app, the templates for .NET 9 started targeting iOS 15 as the minimum supported version. Same with Mac Catalyst 15 or Mac OS 12. I don't know why they're different numbers. That's just exists to confuse us, I'm convinced. But when we saw that, uh, we took that as .NET MAUI has increased their recommended minimum supported platform, and so we bumped ours, only to find out, I guess probably this month, a couple weeks ago, that .NET MAUI still supports older versions of iOS. I think they go all the way back to iOS 12, and so we had a good chat about this in our maintainers Discord, and where I stand is that, and here let me share some info I grabbed because basically not many people are using even iOS 15 nowadays. So uh, when we created the toolkit, we created it with the intention of we'll basically match whatever .NET MAUI supports. And certainly when I created the toolkit back in, gosh, what was that, 2020? Has it been 5 years? No, long time ago. uh, that wasn't too bad, but every year, new version of iOS, new version of Android comes out, and .NET MAUI hasn't increased their minimum supported version yet. And so basically, when we saw the templates update, we took the opportunity to bump our minimum required or minimum supported version because supporting older versions of operating systems is very cumbersome. There's a lot of legacy code involved. There's a lot of workarounds and basically just a lot of stuff for us to maintain. Obviously, we're a small team of developers, and we still have, I see
There's
100.
also testing issues, like with MediaElement. I find it very difficult simply to load an emulator that is under API 26. I mean, it
Yeah,
just half the time it just doesn't load, or I have to do some like spend an hour or two tweaking it just to get it to load, and that's why I pushed really hard for API 26 was because that's fully supported by both by the emulator at least.
yeah, no, I totally agree. So, as as app developers, those of us, including soon to be James, pushing apps to the App Store, the rule of thumb for iOS that actually Apple recommends. Oh, Victor's here. What's going on, Victor? Uh, Good to see you, man. Love you, miss you. Um, what Apple recommends is targeting the current version of iOS, which is currently iOS 18, minus one. So iOS 17 should be your minimum supported version if you're pushing an app to the App Store today, as recommended. But I even went and looked up some numbers. So, for example, Apple publishes data on how many users are on each operating system, and here they show that they only call out iOS 18 and 17, but only 5% of users are on iOS 16 and earlier. And just another data point I found was this is third-party data, but it's a little old. It hasn't been updated since October, but even back in October, uh, if you targeted iOS 16, that would still cover 88.8% of developers. And here, the toolkit still covers iOS 15 and up, and that's 95% of developers. So the decision right now, and happy to hear feedback, happy to make updates, and really happy for anybody to join the team if you want to add backwards compatibility back to iOS 12. It's going to be a lot of work for you, but we would certainly be happy to bring you on board. But yeah, where we kind of landed is that we we have 143 open issues and 23 open pull requests, which all have higher priority than iOS 12. So yes, we did. We added a. Here, let me just pull up the code here. So the reason this is surfaced recently is I went ahead and pushed a commit that updates the builder extensions method. So when you call use community toolkit, um, we added the supported platforms here because yes, we can update our docs. Yes, obviously the code's open source and anybody can go look at it, but who reads the docs? Who looks at the code? And we wanted to basically provide a way for developers that were consuming our library to let them know that, hey, just so you know, we're only targeting iOS 15 and up. We're only targeting Android 21 and up. And this is just a warning. You can ignore it. We didn't change any code when we added these supported platforms attributes. So a lot of the features in the toolkit do work on older versions of iOS and do work on versions of Android. It doesn't mean that all of that we're going to crash your app if you try to run it on the toolkit on iOS 14, because most of the converters, most of the behaviors, probably 90% of the toolkit is agnostic to operating system versions. There hasn't been that many breaking changes, but there are a couple features that won't work. And this is essentially our way of letting you know as the developer that, or know what to expect. So again, if you need support for something, feel free to reach out. We're always looking for more developers to join the team and help us close these pull requests and review the code and close out some of these issues. But for now, yeah, iOS 15 and up, that hits over 95% of iOS users. I even went back and looked. The iPhone 11 is still supported by Apple, meaning iPhone 11 can run iOS 18 today. So you'd have to go all the way back to, actually, ironically, I have my old iPhone 10 right here because I'm also trading it in. uh, you'd have to go all the way back to the iPhone 10, which was released, what, 6 years ago? So
8, 8 years
eight
ago.
years ago. Oh
Yeah,
my
I
goodness.
still have iPhone 8, and the latest version is iOS 16, and yeah, but it still works. Yeah, because it's
So
iPhone. So yeah, I think that first of all, we still do not have any issue related to iOS 12. I think so. We just updated the warnings. So in case you have issue with it, so we will. It will be minor issue for us. So most likely we will not fix it at all. Just close it. Also, yeah, but maybe not close.
And on
Because we are
Android,
friendly. Yeah. Also, I can add that we updated it just because it updated in templates of .NET MAUI. So most likely with the next version, when .NET MAUI updated, we will reflect the changes as well. So in case you create a new application, you will not see any differences when you just add our library.
absolutely. James?
yeah, I was gonna say with Android 21, that's essentially 10 years of support. Like that goes back like to
Yeah.
like the S4.
Yeah,
Like
I will
the
say,
Samsung S4 is fully supported with our current community toolkit, except for MediaElement, where I think we require API 26. And that's crazy. Like I got an S4 phone that I haven't used in like 8 years. No, we're on like the S25 now this year.
yeah, I will say Android's a little different because iOS is super aggressive. They basically force all their users to automatically update, which as an app developer, I love it because again, maintaining older code for older operating system sucks. Android's a little different. So like, I mean, I just Googled a random chart, so who knows how accurate this is, but there's still a significant chunk of Android developers using older versions like Oreo and
Yeah.
Pi. Like those are old, but like I still have an Android phone that is stuck. It's actually a Pixel 2 or Pixel 3, and Google doesn't even let me update that Pixel to the latest version of Android, so I had to buy a new one for testing. So yeah, Android's a little tougher to bump, but yeah, I with the discussion around iOS and bumping to 15, it really shouldn't be a problem for almost all of our developers. But again, if it is, let us know, reach out. We're happy to support you. But again, worst case scenario, the code's all open source. So if for some reason you want to use like one of our features, just throw a dart, we'll say the animation behavior isn't working on iOS 12. Well, all the code's here. So you can copy paste it into your app and then add in the specific iOS 12 code you need. So we don't want you to think we're abandoning you. That's definitely not the case. We just we don't have the resources. Microsoft has a lot of money, and they can afford to pay engineers to go all the way back to iOS 12. We're just a couple of volunteers who do this in our free time. So we appreciate you. And again, if there is something specific, you can reach out. Or if you are a legacy code maintainer and you'd love to join the team and you want to make sure we support iOS 12 forever, I love that too. Come join the team.
Yeah. Some people may say Microsoft still supports .NET Framework. Who remembers that one? Yeah, but it still exists. Yeah, and maybe will exist for a lot of years.
Yeah. So on to some happy news or exciting news. I see George is here, and boom, even in the chat, George mentioned, "Are we going to see Rating View today?" Absolutely, George, because we have a couple releases queued up, and the big one is your pull request, George, for Rating View. So for anybody who hasn't seen this yet, George did a ton of work. This was originally started by a different developer who, oh, there he is right now. He wasn't able to finish it, but George came in, picked up where he left off, and ran with it. And this is really cool. This is a rating view. Let's see, do we have any screenshots, or do I have? Let's just show it running in. Show it running in the app, because it's basically what it sounds like. it's a view that you can add into your app for anybody who wants to include a rating system. So you want to be able for people to say this was 5 stars, boom, you can do that. And George did such an amazing job in the sample app. So you can see all of the different ways you can do it. There's really cool things that you should come and check out because there's a rating view C# page, there's a rating view XAML page, which means George actually wrote the same code twice, once in XAML, once in C#. So love that because I don't get a lot of C# samples in my life, even though it's my favorite. So appreciate that, George. But yeah, check out all these cool things to do. We have all these built-in shapes. So star, circle, heart, like, dislike. These are all included. And then, of course, you can just add in an SVG file for your own custom shape. These are really, really cool. Everything's bindable, so you can toggle the maximum ratings. You can change these colors. So if you, whoops, so you want to change the color there, you can tell it to maybe you want to keep the star a certain color and fill in the background. That's cool too. You can change the border. George really did just an incredible job with this border thickness. Look at this. You can make them read only so nobody can modify it. So I'm clicking on it now, nothing's happening. You can change the padding. Hopefully this is everything you'll ever need in a rating view. I think it is. But thank you, George. And that'll be included in the next release. And so as is tradition, since since Gerald isn't here, then we'll volunteer Gerald to push out a release this week. The other big change in this release will be you'll have to bump up your version of .NET to 9.0.200. So that was actually from the release for CommunityToolkit.MAUI.Camera that's coming and CommunityToolkit.MAUI.MediaElement. James found that, actually, I think Vlad too, both of you guys found that if we bump up to the new version of .NET MAUI, so 9.0.4 of Microsoft MAUI controls, and to use that, you need to be on the latest MAUI workload, which is in .NET 9.0.200, that we can remove all of a lot of our external dependencies to Android X. So long story short, Microsoft updated their Android X dependencies in Microsoft.MAUI controls above the minimum ones we needed for MediaElement and Camera. So it allows us to remove some code, which is always great. I love PRs that delete code more than they add code. And just today for Camera, we merged this PR that will sync the display rotation on Android. So I remember we added a similar one for iOS recently. And now you can do the same on Android. And I just realized I'm sharing my screen and nobody can see it. So sorry. Here's my screen that I was looking at. Here's the cool PR that's coming to CommunityToolkit.MAUI.Camera. And again, all of these will be using .NET 9.0.200. So I'll make sure we include that in the release notes. But let's get into it. Let's chat about all the fun stuff we're here to chat about. We'll kick it off with this first one. So CameraView on window crashes. This is a fun one. This is one I was chatting about with Sean recently, and let me show you what's going on because the user actually did open a pull request here. So Michael, thank you so much for both alerting us to the bug and offering up a fix. And actually, Michael's fix here, it totally works. It's totally valid. If I scroll down, this is literally it. Right now we're throwing, or I guess rethrowing exceptions that happen when you try to take the camera and it fails. And so Michael noticed that, hey, we already have this event called media capture failed where we're propagating the exception message to. And so he said, well, why don't we just subscribe this is in the sample app specifically. In the sample app, why don't we just subscribe to media capture failed? And then if the user developer tries to take a picture, then the app won't crash. And as long as they're subscribed to this event, they'll be alerted. And this is totally valid. This totally works. But when I was thinking about it, it's not a great developer experience. So let's see, scroll down, Sean and I are going back and forth. So yeah, basically what I found is that exception that we're throwing is valid. So if you call the capture image command, and on Windows specifically, where this is happening, that if the camera is already in use, then we'll throw an exception because, well, Windows throws an exception and says, hey, we couldn't capture the image because the camera is already being used. Um, and so that exception is valid because it's true. And my thoughts are we owe it to the developer to alert them because right now, the way you take an image in CameraView is there's the capture image command. So it's a command, a bindable command that's in the CameraView class. But the problem with commands are they're asynchronous fire and forget. So when you create a new command, you say new command, and then you'll do open close parenthesis lambda. So like open close parenthesis goes to, and then that's where you can put your code. But if it's using async await, then there's no way for us to propagate that exception back to the caller. So commands by themselves, by definition, are fire and forget. You just invoke them. You can't await a command unless it's an async command, but that's in a different toolkit. So we don't have asynchronous commands in this toolkit. And so what I was thinking we should do is rethink how we've configured CameraView. And I'll try and scroll down to some good parts. But basically, chatting with Sean, we've figured out that we're mixing up view logic. We're mixing up the view of the camera view, the view you put in your XAML or C# to display the camera or display what the camera sees. And we've combined that with the logic of taking pictures. Whereas, when you think about it, like that's
Also, it's an MVVM issue where we're not separating the view and the view model.
Yeah, exactly. So, so Sean brought up a good point that we already have this internal camera manager class because I was like, hey, why don't we just create a camera service? We'll separate the business logic of capturing an image from the camera view, the lens that you can add to your app. And yeah, Sean brought up a great point that we already have this internal class called Camera Manager that actually does this all under the hood. Like camera view, that command, capture image command, just calls Camera Manager. So wanted to just bring this up to you guys, kind of see what you think. Am I going crazy? Because what I say to Sean here is that it's a pretty shitty developer experience to require the developers to subscribe to this event. And I say that because I've been burned by, well, Xamarin Forms and .NET MAUI do this, and I hate it. They'll fail silently. So like if a binding doesn't work, and things are a little better nowadays with compiled XAML and that compiled bindings, but for example, if you call a binding that's created wrong, or if you try to call a command incorrectly in .NET MAUI, like it'll just fail silently. Nothing happens. So like I write all this code, I go to run my app, and I click a button, and it's like nothing happened. And I look at my code, and I'm like, I think I did everything right. Everything looks good here. Why isn't it working? And basically, if we suppress that exception that gets thrown for the capture image command, if we suppress that exception, then the developer would be telling our library to capture the image. Our library would fail, but we would never tell them why. And so what I think we should do is to deprecate that command and essentially force developers to capture the images through, using async await. So they can call something like await, we'll say camera manager capture async or whatever we end up naming it. Because A, that's business logic. That shouldn't be in the view class anyways. And B, it allows them to await it. And when you await a task, then the exception gets bubbled back through the task. So they can actually catch that exception and handle it in line. Whereas right now, we're saying, oh, yeah, or what we would have been saying if we merged the PR was, oh, yeah, you're doing it wrong because you're not subscribed to an event that fires when it fails. And developers aren't going to read the docs. Developers aren't going to intuitively know to subscribe to that event. So I think the most intuitive thing for developers, especially future developers coming to our library, is just to have an async task method that they can call that's like camera manager dot capture async, whatever we decide to call it. And then that way they can catch the exception in that same code block. Whereas otherwise they'd have a binding to a command in their view, they would have a subscription to the event in their code behind, and then the code to handle the failure would be in a separate place from where they call the capture image command. Whereas I think if we just force them into using a method instead of a command, we can get past all of that. But am I overthinking this? Am I going crazy? Is this a good
No,
idea?
it really does make sense. Like
Okay,
that's what you
good.
did with MediaElement, and that's what we've done with the community toolkit in general, is we've separated the business logic and the view logic. And it also helps with tracking down bugs and stuff like that, right?
Love that. Well, love to hear I'm not going crazy. Vlad, do you have any thoughts?
I like my command, my pull request because it's simple. Yeah, it's easy to review. Just one line of code is removed, just throw. But yeah, yeah, I agree that from user perspective, we will have a lot of issues. Why MediaElement is not captured, or why Windows app crashes just because some I didn't subscribe to some event. Yeah, what is that event? Why should I subscribe to? Just yeah, if it automatically subscribe and notify users somehow, but it doesn't how events works. So yeah.
Okay, cool. I probably can't jump on this right away for reasons we'll talk about later in the stand-up, but
Mhm.
awesome. I'll make a note of that and I'll bump that up to higher in my priority queue. But that'll be a bit more work than the one line PR. But all right, Vlad,
Yeah,
the map doesn't re-render.
yeah, it's our old Windows support for maps, and actually already a pull request created for this one. And why I highlighted this needs discussion, just because it does not only fix what it should fix, not only rendering, but also if you open file changed. Now this map toolkit, community toolkit MAUI maps, yeah, it
I like that.
supports trimming. So how it's implemented, you can scroll down. I created a just small new file, down. Yeah, after
Here,
map hand.
let me
Yeah,
just zoom out a little bit. GitHub works better when
yeah,
I'm not zoomed in
it's a
like
class,
crazy.
yeah, serializer context. So it's all about source generators.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, yes, no, scroll up.
There we go.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, sure. So it's all about source generators that automatically created for specific type, and just because it created in build time, not runtime, we can get all our serializers already created for us, and we can just use them. Yes,
I
so
love that.
that's yeah, it's how
That's sweet.
yeah how I found it.
Cool. I remember we have similar warnings on other libraries or
Yeah, we
our
even
other.
have it in community toolkit MAUI for expander.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's yeah.
yeah, but there we have a different issue, not with a serializer. So I don't know if we can fix it there with some source generators. So as for this one, it was easy fix just because source generators generate JSON serializers for us.
Cool.
Yeah.
So so what do you need from us, Vlad? Somebody
Yeah,
to
I'm just
test it
waiting
real quick.
for review and approve. Yeah. Also, I fixed probably all issues that I found, and thank you, James, for live review. Yeah. So probably if you have had any issues with this library, they should all be resolved. I hope.
Yes,
Woo.
I've tested this. It actually works really well. When I found an issue that was completely unrelated to the PR, but did crash when I was testing, And Vlad, of course, heard about this little problem I was having because I put a video up there for him to see, and he fixed it. And it wasn't part of the required as part of the PR to fix because it was unrelated, but it did happen to crash repeatedly when I tried to test it, and now it doesn't crash at all.
Love that.
Yeah,
Okay.
there were a lot of issues with like when you're up in airplane mode, and I even didn't test it. I never tested my up in airplane mode, and that just crashed because we tried to get a geolocation, and we get a com exception. So a lot of weird issues we get for different scenarios, but yeah, for now it should be much more stable.
I was testing it with both wireless and wired connection to see because the behavior between the different devices, whether it be wireless or wired, could be inconsistent within various platforms. Like the behavior for just MAUI standard libraries, like this MAUI standard library for how it shows the internet being connected is inconsistent sometimes depending on how you use the library.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you're in airplane mode, it still returns it. It's like so I didn't find a way to check if we're in airplane mode. We just check for internet connection is available or not, and for some reason it returns us true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like in airplane mode, it disables the wireless connection, but it doesn't disable Ethernet.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, cool. So for this one, James, so I haven't looked at the code other than the last 2 minutes here. But James, if you've reviewed this and you're cool with it, I see that Vlad's already, or somebody's already enabled auto merge. So I went ahead and updated it to pull in the latest from main. And James, yeah, if you want to come in here and just double check the files again and give it the approval, then we can merge it today, and this could
release.
We could add this to the release list. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, and James, if you do come in and merge it, do me a favor and just update this section here in the wiki.
Okay.
We don't have maps lined up because we haven't done any work on maps. But if we do, then yeah, easy fix, easy release. Fantastic job, Vlad. Thank you. All right. And then Vlad, is this a new one or an old one?
We talked about this last month, but I found a fix. So yeah, you can immediately open a pull request for it. Or you can scroll to our discussions and found it there. Yeah, the pull. This one. This one requires more discussion. Just because I updated minimum version of speech recognition from 33 to 34. And why I changed it, if you open file changed again.
I'm sorry, Vlad. I was trying to, for some reason my mouse isn't working properly. I was just gonna come in here and, oh no, this is a terrible stream. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason my cursor's not showing up. Oh no, chaos. The GitHub UI's website's been struggling with me lately, but sorry, files changed.
If you open files changed, and scroll a bit, down. Not so fast. Okay, so it's all about offline speech recognition of Android. So now a new API that was added in Android 34 is an trigger model download. Probably scroll down a bit. For offline speech recognition Android, you can see that some new classes added, like model download listener. So this new class is like it awaits for downloading offline model for you. So if you have some language like, I don't know, Polish or Chinese, and you tried offline speech recognition, it says that model is not supported and you get some error. Why
Mm.
that happens? Because model is not downloaded. So before starting offline speech recognition, you need to pre-download the language pack. So for English, it works as expected because, at least for me, because in emulator in the phone language was in English, so that is why it works. And for other languages, you need to pre-download, like Italian or some other languages that you need. So, but that API available starting from Android 34. That is why I increased our language. And also another fix that we discussed last time, and we thought that an issue in .NET for Android, that with underscore or dashes. So
Yeah.
actually, I don't know how, but with all my experiments, I found that we need to use for language tag, and somehow it's recognized it correctly and just suggest that we can. So it now correctly recognizes languages. So that's it. So it's also
Incredible.
can be a release candidate, but just need to just waiting for your review.
Cool. So, well, first, thank you. This is awesome. I kind of assumed because I saw a couple issues open up about um, like it couldn't do Italian, and I was like, I wonder if they installed the Italian language pack first. That was so funny
Um,
to see that
yeah,
that
it
was the
can
result.
partially work just because anyway that for language tag is required. Yeah, because or they need to somehow convert it to correct culture info that we pass as a parameter using the underscore on dashes. So that method that now is used is correctly recognized by Android. So it somehow understands how to convert it to correct language that is understood by speech recognition.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm gonna be busy over the next couple of days, working on Popup, and then I'm gonna jump over to that camera manager update that we were just talking about. But yeah, if you can grab somebody, I mean, Victor's not here, so we could volunteer Victor, or yeah, or Sean or Gerald or James if anybody else is able to help you review it because I probably won't be able to get around to this one to look at this one till about next month, Vlad. But yeah, if anybody else is available
Yeah, I'll
to,
be definitely have time to look at the speech recognition one and take a look at it and test it and see that. The other one that we were talking about earlier, I'll probably get to that this afternoon and try and get that done today. I just I've been awake for quite a few hours, so I'd rather sleep first and do it like in the morning at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Because I don't think
take
anybody
care of
wants
yourself,
me
man, of
doing a
course.
serious review after being awake for 24 hours.
No, no, no. We don't get paid enough to work on this to stay awake for 24 hours. But thank you, James. Thank you, Vlad. Okay. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong link. Speaking of Popup V2, um,
I'm excited for this one.
Probably one of our
All
biggest
my apps will like this.
yeah.
this one's so much fun because Sean opened this PR back in 2023. It's one of our oldest open PRs that Vlad jumped in and took it over a month or so ago, and I've been reviewing it, working with Vlad. But wanted to share this with the world if we haven't already. It's really close. I think all we're really missing here is unit tests and docs, assuming all the code's good. But yeah, long story short, let me show you guys, or show everybody, show the world what we did here. And let's see, the best way to probably show this is to go to, well, first of all, This right here, you can just barely see on the screen, but we removed 4,700 lines of code, which again, any PR that removes more code than it adds, favorite PR. But how we were able to do that is we have
Our library may disappear with this approach. If we remove more code than ads.
yeah, like you can see if you look at the core library, let's see, that's samples. Here's core. So all these handlers are being deleted. Basically, we created a custom element ourselves initially for Popup, and anybody who's been with us along the journey, you'll know that Popup has been our most bugged feature, and a lot of that is because we were just creating it ourselves. So Sean had a really cool idea to create something called a pop-up container, and the pop-up container. Oh, actually, I just realized I want to look at pop-up first. There we go. Thanks, GitHub. All right. So the big change here, you can see pop-up used to inherit from Element, and we had all these interfaces. Now, pop-up's a content view, and this makes a lot of sense because a lot of the bugs and problems we had with pop-up was around things like how do we add styles to it? How do we position the pop-up in certain places? And so now, by inheriting from content view, whatever you give us to put in your pop-up will basically just go inside of a content view as its content. And that content view gets put inside of a pop-up container. And pop-up container is literally just a content page. So we're cheating a little bit. But essentially what we're going to do now is modally push a new page to your screen that is more or less invisible. You can change the color of the pop-up background. You know, if you want to dim the opacity, you can do whatever you want. You can make it blue. But yeah, that's just going to be a content page that we push to the navigation stack modally. And then the content you give us for your pop-up, we put inside of our now content view, and we can easily position that anywhere on the content page. And we get all of the hard work that the MAUI engineers already do or have done for free. So there shouldn't be any more issues with styling or positioning or weird things like if you want to put a MediaElement inside of a collection view, inside of a list view, inside of a pop-up, that should all work now. And if it doesn't, it's because of something underlying in the .NET MAUI library. So it's a bit different. The big breaking changes, we're removing the anchor view. So if anybody's using anchor view, let us know, because Vlad has a really cool idea on how to implement it, but we kind of want to know, is it worth our time to do that? How many folks are using anchor view? Is this going to be a really bad breaking change for everybody? Let us know. But yeah, this one's really exciting. Like I said, we're ripping out a bunch of code and we're cheating. And like George says, you're not a true developer unless you cheat, because a good developer is a lazy developer. But this will be coming soon. So things will be a little different. Oh, I should also show the way you invoke pop-up will be different as well. If I can find it quickly, we'll show it. I don't want to spend too much time. It's the pop-up extensions.
In pop-up. Yeah, we have changes in pop-up service and pop-up extensions.
That's right. Yeah. So but, yeah, pop-up extensions. Like right now, we kept this one. So like show pop-up. Like if you're on a page, you can just say this.show pop-up, like you are probably familiar with. If you're not on a page, you could always leverage the navigation stack. So we've got an extension method for the navigation stack. And then, yeah, like Vlad said, in pop-up service, which we had to bump up. It looks like we deleted this pull request, but it just moved to moved up a library. Pop-up.
Yeah, I see it. The last file.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, that's the one we deleted.
Deleted.
There you go. We just moved it to a new folder. So yeah, sorry, Vlad, you were saying with pop-up service?
Yeah, as for pop-up service, we changed the way how we register pop-ups a bit. So you need to you can now specify left. So we merged all methods like add scoped, add transient, and singleton in one method that called add pop-up, and you pass a parameter. So it's just one method instead of three different methods that do pretty much the same. So also important thing that most likely you will not have a lot of code changes in your application with this migration. So we tried to keep almost everything the same as you had before. So as for pop-up class, yeah, you can. There are just small changes you will need to. So
Yeah.
you should familiar with these changes as just a content view.
Yeah, so the biggest one is we added in a new class called Popup Options. And Popup Options, let's see if I can find Popup Options, Popup Options. There we go, Popup Options. So Popup Options is what you'll use now when you create your pop-up. And oh gosh, so I'm trying to zoom in. But basically, pop-up options is where you will define things like the background color can be dismissed by tapping outside of pop-up. So we had to break those out from pop-up itself. But when you invoke your pop-up, you have to pass in pop-up options. Um, and so this is where you can do all that. These are all bindable. So while the pop-up is displayed, you can modify, can be dismissed in your view model using bindings. So it should be a better overall developer experience. And yeah, for the most part, like Vlad said, it shouldn't be a huge disruption to your code, despite it being a pretty big breaking change under the hood. So yeah, as long as you're aware of pop-up options, and you'll see that when you call things like show pop-up async, you'll have to pass in a pop-up options as a parameter, then you're good to go. But I see we are already at the top of the hour, so let's keep moving. Popup V2, I'm gonna keep working on these unit tests for us, Vlad, and once those are ready, I'll either start the documentation, or if Sean's available to help with the docs, we can pull him in. But yeah, we're getting really close.
Yeah, most
But
likely we'll also include change migration steps. I actually added them in pull request summary.
oh, great idea.
But yeah, maybe for some period of time we can include that in documentation as well or in release notes for those who will migrate from version 1 to version 2.
Yeah, like I said, I think the biggest things are, in your XAML, you might have can be dismissed outside of pop-up equals false in XAML. That's going to throw an error in the new implementation, where obviously that is part of pop-up options, and that is the options are what's included when you fire the pop-up, when you say show pop-up. But let's keep rolling. I don't want to keep everybody
Yeah,
here forever.
we discussed that too.
We did this too.
Yeah, pull request from the issues. Yeah.
Well, then we're right on time. And James, over to you for enable disable MediaElement foreground
Okay,
service.
there's both pros and cons to doing this. I think we really should do it, but just recently we added support to basically users had an issue where they want to not have the foreground service running. They don't necessarily care about the notifications. And they want to have it sort of as the background, like they don't really care about the background service itself, and they have their own services that interfere or don't work well with a MediaElement service. So I'm thinking we could just simply create options, create an options class, and just add it like the way we do with the MAUI community toolkit, and put it in the builder, and just allow us to just say no, we don't want the service, and then in MediaElement itself in Android, just configure it to use that options class and just not turn the service on. The one downside of this is I'll have to revert the changes that I made to basically make it seamless. Like, because right now I have it set. I removed all of the stuff we needed to do in the Android XML file for we used to have users used to have to add a bunch of well, my mind is blank right now. Adding a bunch of the Android manifest. Yes, we had to add a bunch of code to the Android manifest for the service and for permissions. And recently, we did an update where I was able to remove almost all of that. It's all was done in MediaElement now. But if we want to have this options class, we would have to move all of that back in there. And the one great thing about what we did was that reduced the number of bug reports by about 90%. So the not reading the manual was the issue. And I reduced the workload of like bug reports by more, I'd say more than 50%, by moving the stuff out of the manifest directly into MediaElement, because we can just request it directly. And in order to enable this, in order to create an options class and allow the foreground service to be disabled, we would have to move that out of MediaElement all the way into the developer to adding it directly themselves. And it would just be a simple reversion there, and then we would have to basically just create the options class, and it would be pretty trivial to do.
So, James, the only concern I have is by doing it as the options class, that will enable it or disable it for any media element in the entire app. And
yes,
the concern I have is, I've used MediaElement in my apps, and I've used it in different places. And
the issue is if one of the specific issues they were having with, they didn't want the foreground service. Like that was one of the primary things, is like they didn't want the foreground service running at all. And we could leave it disabled, or we could also, there is that option there where we could have it still in the manifest, but just not turn it on. Like not actually start it up, is what you mean, right? So that means we could have the option to not have the options class and just have, say, a toggle switch in MediaElement itself that says enable service or disable service.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can create new media elements 5 times in my app, and each I might have different requirements for. So yeah, I think if we could put the option in the MediaElement class,
then I wouldn't have to remove the. I could leave things as is, and I wouldn't have to revert those changes. Then, yeah.
So just a thought. I mean, you're the MediaElement expert on the team.
No, that sure. I think you've got the right idea. I think that's probably the best way to go forward. Yeah.
Cool. That sounds good. Vlad, any thoughts?
Not from me. I agree.
Well, I love it when a plan comes together. I don't have anything for the markup library. There is an open PR that we're waiting on some unit tests for. Once that's merged, we can push through an update for MAUI markup. But other than that, that's it for the agenda. Any final thoughts, Vlad, James?
Yes, just one last thing. There's a current PR right now out for someone that's from the community that's adding a feature to MediaElement, and there was a big blocker for them, which was specifically that it was adding support for the forward and back button. The next and previous button. One of the blockers on Android was being unable to add media items or add or remove them because Media 3 had a bug, and it's now been acknowledged by the Microsoft team with a big, why did we do it this way? We need to fix this. And it's somebody has an active PR to fix it. And it's
Oh,
John
fantastic.
Pryor's has an active PR to fix it. And it's like one of those what WTF moments of like he actually put it in his PR and the report. Well, who wrote this code and why was it written? Because apparently the really funny thing is it works fine as long as you don't want to use any of that commands in runtime. It compiles fine,
Yeah.
but it can't be but it makes the code unaddressable at runtime.
Cool. Is it, I was trying to find the PR you were talking about. Is it this one with the texture view?
No. Oh yeah. I'm not. It's not one that's. I think it's not one that's actually been opened yet. I've been talking to them
Oh,
on
okay.
Discord, helping them with it. They've been working on it for like the last 9 or 10 months, and uh, they're working on it. Yeah.
Cool. That's great news. And John Pryor is one of the smartest guys I know. So if John Pryor's
Yeah.
fixing it, it's fixed. That's great news. Thank you, James. Okay, well, everybody, thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us. Again, let us know what you think. If you have any feedback, come join the discussions. And we will be opening up to new maintainers later this year. So if you have thoughts about ever joining the team, we'll have another round of voting in July and August to bring on new folks. So let us know if you want to come in and help, if you want to join the team, if you just kind of want to come hang out. You can chat with James in the Discord and he'll help you update your PRs. It's really something special we've got going on. So thank you for everything you guys do, Vlad and James, and thank you for everybody in the community. George, thanks for joining us. It's great seeing you today. And we will see you all next month.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Bye bye.